The great crystal dome of the Federation war chamber stretched high above the assembled alien commanders. Light from 3 different suns filtered through the transparent walls, casting rainbow patterns across the polished floor. Commander Yultok stood at the center of the circular room, his crystalline body catching the light and throwing it back in brilliant flashes. "We gather here today to discuss the Vorthak threat," Yultok announced, his voice resonating through the chamber like wind chimes in a storm. The Nexari commander was ancient, even by his species' standards. His crystal form had grown complex over the centuries, with sharp edges and intricate patterns that showed his experience in warfare. Around the chamber, representatives from dozens of species sat in their designated areas. Admiral Grixmar of the Hegemony clicked her mandibles together in what passed for agreement among her insectoid people. Her 6 arms moved in precise patterns as she manipulated the holographic display before her. The display showed the current positions of Vorthak, fleets throughout the galaxy. "The Vorthak have taken 17 systems in the past cycle," Grixmar said, her voice buzzing through the translation device attached to her throat. "Their tactics remain predictable, but their numbers are growing. We must act soon or risk losing the outer rim entirely." From the gaseous section of the chamber came a whisper that seemed to fill the air without any visible source. The ethereals rarely spoke, but when they did, everyone listened. "We have observed their patterns for many cycles. They follow the same strategies their ancestors used. Straight-line attacks, overwhelming force, no subtlety." Yultok nodded, sending more light cascading across the walls. "Exactly. And this is why we shall defeat them easily. We have perfected the art of war over millennia. Each species brings their own strengths to our combined might." The commander gestured to the massive tactical display that dominated the center of the chamber. It showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy, with different colors marking the territories of various species. Red areas showed Vorthak-controlled space, slowly expanding toward the galactic core. "The Nexari bring our mastery of energy manipulation," Yultok continued. "We can bend light itself to our will, create shields that have never been broken, and fire beams that can cut through any material." Admiral Grixmar stood, her exoskeleton gleaming under the lights. "The Hegemony offers our swarm tactics. We have conquered more worlds than any other species. Our ships move as one mind, strike from all directions, and overwhelm any defense." The ethereal voice whispered again. "And we provide phase shift technology. We can move through solid matter, appear anywhere on the battlefield, and strike where enemies least expect us." Other species added their voices to the discussion. The rocky stone guards spoke of their impenetrable defenses. The swift windrunners boasted of their speed and maneuverability. The aquatic deep current mentioned their mastery of 3-dimensional tactics learned in their ocean worlds. "You see," Yultok said, "we have every aspect of warfare covered. The Vorthak may have numbers, but we have perfection. Each of our species has spent thousands of years developing their military arts. We know exactly how to fight, exactly how to win." The tactical display shifted to show the Kepler 442 system, where long-range scouts had detected Vorthak movement. 3 planets orbited the star, 2 of them rich in rare minerals that both sides needed for their war machines. "This will be their next target," Grixmar said, pointing at the system with one of her sharp claws. "If we position our fleets correctly, we can trap them between our forces and crush them completely." "A perfect ambush," agreed Yultok. "We have done this many times before." The Vorthak will come in their standard formation, we will respond with our proven tactics, and victory will be ours. The representatives began discussing fleet movements and battle formations. Everything was precise, calculated, following strategies that had worked for generations. Each species knew their role, their strengths, their place in the grand design of galactic warfare. But as they talked, something appeared on the edge of the tactical display that made the sensor operator pause. A small blip moving at an unusual speed from the outer rim of the galaxy. The operator, a multi-eyed creature called Zix-7, tapped his controls with tentacles that moved like liquid. "Commander," Zix-7 called out, "we have an unknown. Contact approaching the system. Energy signature does not match any known species." Yultok barely glanced at the display. "Probably another client species seeking our protection. Send them the standard first contact package. Tell them they may serve the Federation if they prove worthy." "Sir, the energy readings are strange. Their propulsion system does not match any technology in our databases." Admiral Grixmar made a dismissive clicking sound. "Every primitive species thinks they have invented something new. We have seen it all before. Whatever they have built, it cannot compare to our refined technologies. Should I prepare a welcoming fleet?" asked another officer. "No need," Yultok replied. "One ship can handle first contact with any new species. They will either join us willingly or learn to fear our power. Either way, they will not be a concern." The ethereal whisper filled the chamber again. "Perhaps we should examine this anomaly more carefully. Unknown variables can disrupt even perfect plans." But Yultok had already turned back to the main tactical display. "Unknown variables are just problems waiting to be solved with superior force. We have never met a species that could challenge our combined might. This will be no different." The discussion continued for several more hours. Battle plans were refined, ship positions calculated, supply lines secured. Everything was organized with the precision that had made the Federation the dominant power in the galaxy. They had fought the same kinds of wars for so long that victory seemed automatic. As the meeting ended, the various commanders returned to their ships, confident in their strategies and their technology. They had seen countless species rise and fall. They had perfected warfare to a science, with rules and patterns that never failed. The unknown contact continued its approach toward Federation space, but none of the alien commanders gave it much thought. After all, what could one ship do against the combined might of the galaxy's greatest military powers? In the depths of space, far from the crystal chambers and holographic displays, something was coming that would change everything the aliens thought they knew about war. But for now, the Federation prepared for battle against the Vorthak, secure in their belief that they had mastered every aspect of conflict. The great war machines began to move, following patterns as old as their civilizations. Ships took their assigned positions, weapons charged according to ancient protocols, and commanders prepared to execute strategies that had worked for thousands of years. None of them realized that their perfect understanding of warfare was about to be shattered by a species that had learned to fight in ways they could never imagine. The unknown contact was still days away, but when it arrived, nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The aliens claimed to master war. They were about to learn what war really meant. Captain Lee Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the stars through the main view screen. The battleship had been traveling for 3 months, following signals that suggested intelligent life ahead. Earth's first journey beyond their home system had led them here, to the edge of what they would soon learn was a galactic war zone. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," reported Communications Officer Lieutenant Kim So-ra from her station. The young officer had joined the crew straight from the Naval Academy, eager to be part of humanity's first contact with alien life. "Put it through, Lieutenant," Lee replied, settling into his command chair. The bridge crew turned their attention to the main screen as symbols and sounds filled the air. After several minutes, the ship's translation system began making sense of the message. A holographic figure appeared on the screen. It was tall and thin, with smooth gray skin and large black eyes. The creature spoke in a monotone voice that the translator rendered into Korean. "Greetings, primitive species. You have entered Federation space without permission. This is a violation of galactic law. However, the Galactic Federation is generous to new species that show promise." Lee raised an eyebrow but remained silent, listening to the complete message. "You will be granted client status under Federation protection. Your species will provide resources and labor as assigned. In return, we will defend you from hostile forces and guide you toward civilization. Respond within one planetary rotation to accept these terms." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Chief Engineer Commander Park Jin-woo was the first to speak. "Client status," he said, shaking his head. "They want us to become their servants." "More than that," added Tactical Officer Lieutenant Nam Yoo-jin. "They're assuming we have no choice in the matter. Like it's automatic." Captain Lee studied the star charts on his screen. Long-range sensors had detected massive fleet movements throughout this region of space. Two major powers seemed to be at war, with dozens of smaller groups caught between them. "Lieutenant Kim, prepare a response," Lee ordered. "Tell them we appreciate their offer, but humanity prefers to remain independent. We're willing to establish trade relations and mutual cooperation, but we won't accept client status." Kim's fingers flew over her controls as she composed the message. "Sir, should I mention our military capabilities?" "No need," Lee replied. "Let's see how they react to a polite refusal first." The response was transmitted, and the crew settled in to wait. It didn't take long. Within hours, sensors detected multiple ships moving in their direction, but these weren't Federation vessels. "Captain," called sensor operator Ensign Kang Hye-jin, "3 ships approaching from the spinward direction. Configuration unknown, but they're heavily armed." "Are they Federation vessels?" "Negative, sir. These match the profiles of ships we've been tracking on the edge of the conflict zone. I think they might be Vorthak." The incoming ships transmitted their own message, and once again the translation system worked to decode it. This time, a reptilian face appeared on the screen. The creature had scales instead of skin and eyes like burning coals. "Unknown species," the alien hissed. "You have attracted the attention of the Vorthak Empire. We claim this territory and all within it. Surrender your ship and prepare to serve the Empire or be destroyed." Chief Navigator Major Han Gil-soo turned from his station. "Well, that's straightforward enough. At least they're honest about their intentions." Captain Lee stood up, straightening his uniform. "Lieutenant Kim, transmit our response. Tell them humanity doesn't surrender to anyone. If they want a fight, they'll get one." "Sir," Park Jin-woo said from the engineering station, "these aliens seem to think we're helpless. Both sides are treating us like we're completely outmatched." "Maybe they're right," suggested Navigator Gil-soo. "We don't know what their weapons can do." Lee walked to the tactical display and studied the approaching ships. They were sleek, elegant designs that looked more like works of art than weapons of war. Everything about them suggested precision engineering and advanced technology. "Tell me something, Park," Lee said to his chief engineer. How does the Indomitable compare to those ships? Park consulted his instruments before answering. They're faster and more maneuverable, sir. Their energy signatures suggest more advanced propulsion systems, but what? They seem to be built for specific roles. One appears to be a long-range attack vessel, one looks like a fast interceptor, and the third seems designed for close-quarters combat. Each ship is perfect for its intended purpose. And the Indomitable? Park smiled grimly. We're built to do everything at once, sir. Not as elegant, but much more flexible. The Vorthak ships were getting closer, and their intentions were becoming clear. They had formed a standard attack formation, approaching in a pattern that would allow them to surround and overwhelm their target. They're following textbook tactics, observed Tactical Officer Eugene. Perfect positioning, coordinated approach, overwhelming firepower focused on a single target. What would you do against that formation? Lee asked. Eugene studied the display for a moment. In the academy, they'd tell us to try to break their coordination, maybe target the lead ship to disrupt their command structure. And what does your gut tell you? The young officer grinned. Hit them where they don't expect it, sir. These formations work great against opponents who follow the same rules. But what if we don't play their game? Captain Lee nodded approvingly. The Vorthak ships were now close enough to begin their attack run. Their weapons were charging, energy readings spiking as they prepared to demonstrate their superiority over this primitive species. All stations prepare for combat, Lee announced. But remember, we're not just representing ourselves here. We're showing the galaxy what humans can do. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, bringing the Indomitable to battle readiness. Unlike the alien ships with their specialized roles, the human battleship was designed as a complete weapons platform. It could fight at any range in any situation, adapting to whatever the enemy brought to the battle. Captain, Kim reported from communications, the Federation is monitoring this encounter. I'm detecting observation drones from multiple species. Good, Lee replied. Let them watch. They're about to learn something about humanity. The Vorthak ships began their final approach, confident in their superior technology and proven tactics. They had never encountered a species that could match their military might, and they saw no reason why these humans would be any different. But as the first shots were fired, both the attacking Vorthak and the watching Federation forces would discover that humans had learned warfare in a very different school. They were about to witness tactics and strategies that had never been seen in their orderly, predictable conflicts. The battle was about to begin, and with it, the galaxy's first lesson in human warfare. Colonial Defense Commander Choi Min-ho watched the 3 Vorthak destroyers approach New Busan through the Defense Center's main display. The human mining colony sat on the edge of explored space, far from Earth's protective fleet. It was supposed to be safe, hidden in an asteroid field that most species avoided. How long until they reach orbit? Choi asked his communications officer. 15 minutes, sir, replied Sergeant Lim Soo-jin, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. They're broadcasting standard surrender demands on all frequencies. Choi looked around the small defense center. He had 43 people under his command, most of them miners who had volunteered for colonial defense duty. Their weapons were mining equipment modified for combat. Their armor was environmental suits with extra plating welded on. Patch me. Through to the colony, he ordered. The main screen switched to show Mayor Park Dong-hyun in the colony's emergency shelter. Behind him, Choi could see hundreds of colonists, men, women, and children who had come to New Busan to build a new life among the stars. Commander, what's our situation? The mayor asked. 3 enemy warships, heavily armed. Choi replied honestly. Our defense satellites might slow them down, but we're not equipped for this kind of fight. What are our options? Choi was quiet for a moment. The smart thing would be to surrender, hope the aliens were merciful. But he thought about his daughter back on Earth, about the messages she sent talking about her dreams of visiting the colonies someday. We fight, he said finally. We buy time and hope the Navy gets our distress call. Mayor Park nodded grimly. Then we fight. What do you need from us? Every mining charge you have, every piece of heavy equipment that can be weaponized, and get everyone into the deepest shelters you can find. The Vorthak ships entered orbit right on schedule. They were beautiful in their own way, sleek predators, designed for hunting and killing. Their hulls gleamed with energy shields that sparkled like starlight. The lead ship transmitted a message that filled the colony's communication channels. The voice was harsh, reptilian, full of contempt. Primitive humans of New Busan Colony, you will surrender all resources and personnel to the Vorthak Empire. Resistance is futile. You have no military vessels, no adequate defenses. Submit now, and your deaths will be quick. Choi activated the colony's response transmitter. This is Colonial Defense Commander Choi Min-ho. New Busan Colony does not surrender to anyone. If you want our home, you'll have to take it. There was a long pause before the Vorthak commander responded. When it came, the alien voice carried a note of surprise. You would choose death over servitude? Your species is even more primitive than we thought. Very well. Prepare to be destroyed as an example to others. The first energy beams lanced down from orbit, striking the colony's outer defenses. The defensive satellites Choi had positioned around the settlement returned fire with converted mining. Lasers, but their weapons barely scratched the Vorthak shields. Defensive positions, Choi shouted. Remember, we're not trying to win. We're trying to make them pay for every meter. The colonists had worked through the night preparing for this moment. Mining equipment had been turned into weapons, cargo haulers converted into makeshift tanks. The asteroid processing plant had become a fortress, its heavy machinery providing cover for the defenders. One Vorthak destroyer began landing troops in the colony's main plaza. The aliens were tall and reptilian, moving in perfect formation with weapons that hummed with deadly energy. They expected to face panicked civilians who would scatter at the first sign of resistance. Instead, they met minor first-class Oyunbi crouching behind an overturned ore hauler, waiting until the aliens were close before triggering the mining. Charges she had buried in the plaza. The explosion threw several Vorthak soldiers through the air, their perfect formation broken. Now! Choi shouted over the communication system. The colonists opened fire from windows, rooftops, and hidden positions throughout the settlement. Their weapons were crude compared to Vorthak energy rifles, but they were effective. Mining lasers designed to cut through solid rock could damage alien armor. Explosive charges meant for breaking asteroids could destroy alien equipment. The Vorthak commander had expected a quick, clean victory. Instead, his troops were taking casualties from enemies who fought like cornered animals. Every building had to be taken room by room. Every street was a potential ambush. These humans fight without honor, the Vorthak ground commander reported to his ship. They do not form ranks or follow proper battle protocols. They hide and strike from unexpected angles. Then burn them out, came the response from orbit. Use orbital bombardment to destroy their positions. But the colonists had prepared for this too. The most important facilities were built into the asteroids themselves protected by solid rock that could absorb tremendous punishment. When the Vorthak ships fired their main weapons, the humans simply moved deeper underground. Hours passed. The Vorthak had superior weapons and training, but the humans had something else: desperation and ingenuity. They used the colony's mining tunnels to move unseen, appearing behind enemy lines to strike and fade away. They turned the settlement's own infrastructure into weapons, using the atmosphere processors to create toxic clouds and the gravity generators to trap alien troops. Chief Mining Engineer Bae Dong-hyun had rigged the main ore processing facility with enough explosive charges to level half the colony. When a full company of Vorthak soldiers occupied the building, he triggered the detonation remotely. The explosion lit up the asteroid field like a small star. When the smoke cleared, the processing facility was gone, along with 30 Vorthak soldiers and their heavy equipment. "Status report," Choi called over the communicator. "We've lost the main plaza and the landing field," reported Sergeant Lim, "but they're paying for every meter. Their casualty rate is much higher than expected. How long can we hold?" "Maybe 6 more hours if we're lucky." That's when the sensors detected a new contact approaching from deep space. It was moving fast, much faster than the Vorthak ships, and its energy signature was unlike anything in the old alien databases. The UES Indomitable had received New Busan's distress call 3 days earlier. Captain Lee had pushed his ship to maximum speed, racing to reach the colony before it was too late. As the human battleship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, both the defenders and the attackers paused to watch. The Vorthak had never seen a human warship before. It was massive, angular, bristling with weapon systems that didn't follow any known design principles. "Unknown vessel," the Vorthak fleet commander transmitted. "You are interfering in Vorthak military operations. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Captain Lee's response was broadcast on all frequencies, heard by every human in the colony, and every alien in the system. "This is Captain Lee Dae-ho of the United Earthship Indomitable. You are attacking human civilians. Withdraw from this system immediately or face the consequences." The Vorthak commander made a sound that might have been laughter. "1 ship against 3? You humans truly are primitive. Prepare to join your colonists in death." Down on New Busan, Commander Choi allowed himself a small smile. The cavalry had arrived. Now the aliens would learn what happened when humans had time to prepare for a real fight. The UES Indomitable hung in space like a predator sizing up its prey. Captain Lee studied the tactical display, watching the 3 Vorthak destroyers as they turned from their attack on New Busan to face this new threat. The alien ships moved, with practiced precision, forming a triangle formation that would let them concentrate their firepower while protecting each other's flanks. "Beautiful ships," commented Chief Weapons Officer Major Han Gil-soo from his station. "Look at those lines. That perfect symmetry. They're built like works of art." "Pretty ships die just as easily as ugly ones," replied Tactical Officer Lieutenant Nam Yu-jin. "Maybe easier if they're more worried about looking good than fighting hard." Captain Lee activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands. This is the captain. We're about to engage 3 enemy vessels in defense of New Busan Colony. These aliens think they understand warfare, but they're about to get a lesson in how humans fight. Man your stations, check your weapons, and show them what happens when they threaten our people." The Vorthak fleet commander opened communications. One final time. The reptilian face on the screen showed confidence and contempt in equal measure. "Human vessel, you have 10 seconds to withdraw before we demonstrate the futility of your position. No single ship can stand against Vorthak military might. Lee looked directly into the camera. You're right about one thing. This won't take long. But you're wrong about who's going to be left standing. The transmission ended, and the battle began. The Vorthak ships opened fire first, as Lee had expected they would. 3 streams of coherent energy lanced across space, each beam perfectly aimed at the Indomitable's center of mass. The aliens fought by the rules, elegant, efficient, and utterly predictable. Evasive maneuvers, Lee ordered calmly. The massive battleship suddenly twisted, sideways, rotating on its axis while maintaining forward momentum. The movement was impossible by alien standards. Their ships were too specialized, too perfect to make such abrupt changes in direction. The Vorthak energy beams passed harmlessly through the space where the Indomitable had been. Return fire. All forward batteries, Lee commanded. Major Han Gilsu pressed his firing controls, and the front half of the Indomitable lit up like a constellation. Unlike the elegant single-beam weapons the aliens preferred, the human ship unleashed a devastating barrage from dozens of different weapon systems simultaneously. Kinetic projectiles the size of telephone poles streaked across space at a significant fraction of light speed. Missile clusters spread out in all directions before curving back toward their targets. Plasma cannons fired streams of superheated matter that burned bright enough to be seen from the colony below. The lead Vorthak destroyer took the full force of the barrage. Its energy shields, which had never failed against any known weapon, flared and collapsed under the sheer variety of different attack types. The kinetic rounds punched through the hull like it was made of paper. The plasma streams melted armor that was supposed to be invulnerable. The missiles found weak points and exploited them with explosive precision. In 30 seconds, the destroyer was a drifting wreck, its elegant lines broken and twisted beyond recognition. The remaining 2 Vorthak ships pulled back, their commanders, stunned by what they had just witnessed. They had never seen weapons like these, tactics like these. How could a single ship mount so many different types of weapons? How could it move in ways that defied everything they knew about space combat? Impossible, the Vorthak fleet commander whispered, his voice picked up by open communications. Our intelligence said humans were primitive. Their technology should be centuries behind ours. Captain Lee heard the transmission and smiled grimly. Lieutenant Kim, open a channel to both remaining ships. The communications officer nodded. Channel open, sir. Vorthak vessels. This is your only warning. Withdraw from this system immediately. Leave our people alone and we'll let you go. Continue this attack, and we'll send you to join your friend. The 2 destroyers began to separate, trying to attack from different angles. It was a sound, tactical move by galactic standards. Divide the enemy's attention, force them to split their fire, create opportunities for coordinated strikes. But humans didn't fight by galactic standards. Navigation, take us between them, Lee ordered. Let's see if they can handle close-quarters combat. Lieutenant Yu Jin looked up from her station. Sir, that will put us in a crossfire. Standard doctrine says we should maintain distance and use our range advantage. Standard doctrine is what they expect, Lee replied. We're going to do something they can't predict. The Indomitable accelerated directly toward the gap between the 2 Vorthak ships. As it closed the distance, both alien vessels opened fire, their energy beams converging on the human battleship. But the Indomitable was no longer where they expected it to be. The ship rolled and twisted through space like a fighter rather than a capital ship, its human-designed engines allowing maneuvers that would tear apart the elegant alien vessels. Point defense systems, activate, Major Gilsu called out. Let's show them how we handle energy weapons. Hundreds of small laser turrets across the Indomitable's hull began firing in precise patterns. The alien energy beams struck the ship's armor, but most of their power was dissipated by the point defense grid. What little energy made it through was absorbed by armor designed to handle the chaos of Earth's own weapons testing. "Now!" Lee commanded. "Full broadside, both targets!" The Indomitable unleashed its fury on both sides simultaneously. Port and starboard weapon systems fired independently, each targeting a different enemy ship. The volume of fire was incredible. It looked like the human ship was surrounded by its own personal star system of weapons fire. The second Vorthak destroyer tried to retreat, but kinetic rounds traveled faster than its engines could accelerate. The ship came apart in sections, its beautiful curves reduced to twisted metal and escaping atmosphere. The final destroyer attempted a ramming attack, a last desperate gambit that had worked against other enemies in the past. The ship accelerated, directly toward the Indomitable's bridge, hoping to take the human ship down with it. "Collision course detected," reported Navigator Eugene. "Impact in 15 seconds. Engineering, can you give me more power to the forward thrusters?" Lee asked. Chief Engineer Park Jin-woo's voice came over the intercom. "Engines are already at maximum, Captain, but I can divert power from other systems." "Do it." The lights dimmed throughout the ship as power flowed to the engines. The Indomitable suddenly accelerated forward, meeting the Vorthak charge head-on. But at the last second, the human ship rotated 90 degrees, bringing its heaviest armor to bear while presenting the smallest possible target. The collision was tremendous. The Vorthak destroyer struck the Indomitable's armored hull and crumpled like an insect hitting a windshield. The alien ship's elegant design, perfect for long-range combat, was no match for the brutal practicality of human engineering. When the explosion cleared, only one ship remained intact. The UES Indomitable hung in space, its armor scarred but its structure sound. Around it, the debris of 3 Vorthak destroyers spread out in expanding clouds of metal and ice. "Damage report," Lee called out. "Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12, engineering reported. "Armor damage throughout the forward sections, but all major systems are operational. We can fight. Casualties, 17 injured, none dead. Medical, teams are responding." Captain Lee nodded with satisfaction. "Communications, send a message to New Busan. Tell them the immediate threat is over. And send a message to Earth Command. Inform them that we've made contact with hostile alien forces." "Sir," Lieutenant Kim said from her station, "I'm picking up multiple transmissions from throughout the system. It looks like other species were monitoring this battle." "What are they saying?" Kim listened to her earpiece for a moment, her expression growing more surprised. "They're asking for tactical analyses, weapon specifications, ship design principles. It sounds like we impressed them, sir." Lee looked out at the debris field that had once been 3 of the galaxy's most advanced warships. "Good. Let them study the wreckage. Let them try to figure out how we did it. Maybe next time they'll think twice before threatening human colonies." The battle was over, but its effects would ripple throughout the galaxy. For the first time in millennia, the established powers had seen their military supremacy challenged. The humans had introduced chaos to their orderly universe, and nothing would ever be the same. The news of the battle at New Busan spread through galactic space like wildfire. In command centers across dozens of worlds, alien military leaders watched the recorded battle footage with growing amazement and concern. What they saw challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare. Admiral Yultok stood in the crystal war room of the Federation flagship, replaying the battle for the 10th time. Around him, His senior staff watched in silence as the human ship tore apart 3 Vorthak destroyers with tactics they had never seen before. "Explain to me again how one ship defeated 3, Yultok demanded, his crystalline form flickering. With agitation. Strategic analyst Kix 4, a 4-armed creature with multiple eyes, manipulated the holographic display. The human vessel used what appears to be chaos-based warfare, Admiral. Instead of following predictable patterns, they made decisions that seemed random but were actually calculated. Chaos-based warfare? Yultok repeated. That's impossible. Warfare is a science. It follows rules, patterns, logical progressions. You cannot win battles with chaos. Yet they did win, pointed out Fleet Captain Nex 12. And not just barely. They destroyed their opponents completely while taking minimal damage themselves. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place in the Vorthak command structure. Fleet Admiral Zex 9 paced back and forth in his war room, his reptilian claws clicking against the metal floor. The destruction of 3 destroyers by a single unknown vessel was the first major Vorthak defeat in centuries. Their weapons made no sense, reported Chief Analyst Kex 7, studying the sensor data. They fired dozens of different weapon types simultaneously. Kinetic projectiles, energy beams, explosive missiles, plasma streams, all from the same ship. Impossible, Zex 9 hissed. No ship can mount that many different weapon systems. The power requirements alone would be enormous. Yet the evidence is clear, Admiral. The human vessel somehow integrated technologies that should be incompatible. And they used them in ways that violated every principle of space combat. Back on the Indomitable, Communications Officer Lieutenant Kim So-ra was monitoring the flood of alien transmissions that filled local space. The battle had attracted attention from every major power in the galaxy, and all of them wanted to understand what they had witnessed. "Captain," Kim reported, "I'm intercepting communications from at least 12 different species. They're all trying to analyze our tactics." Captain Lee walked over to her station. "What are they saying?" "The Federation commanders are calling our fighting style impossible chaos. The Vorthak are demanding explanations from their own tactical experts, and there are several smaller species asking if we're available as mercenaries." Chief Engineer Park Jinwoo looked up from his damage assessment reports. "I've been monitoring their technical discussions too. They can't figure out how we mounted so many weapon systems on one ship. They keep talking about specialization and efficiency." "What do you mean?" Lee asked. "Their ships are designed for specific roles," Park explained. "A long-range attack vessel only has long-range weapons. An interceptor only has short-range systems. A defense ship only has defensive equipment. They can't comprehend a ship that's designed to do everything." Tactical Officer Yu Jin turned from her console. "It's more than that, sir. I've been studying their battle footage from previous conflicts. They fight like they're following a rulebook. Formation Alpha attacks Position Beta, which responds with Maneuver Gamma. It's all very organized and predictable." "Predictable is good," Lee mused. "Predictable means we can stay ahead of them." The discussion was interrupted by an incoming transmission from Admiral Grixmar of the Hegemony. The insectoid commander appeared on the main screen, her mandibles clicking rapidly in what the translator rendered as extreme agitation. "Human vessel, this is Admiral Grixmar of the Galactic Federation. We demand an explanation for your tactical systems. Your methods violate established rules of engagement." Lee exchanged glances with his senior staff before responding. "Admiral, we're not aware of any rules that govern how we defend ourselves. Could you explain what violations you're referring to?" "You used multiple weapon types simultaneously," Grixmar buzzed. You changed your attack pattern randomly. You maneuvered in ways that ignored optimal efficiency. These tactics are chaotic and unprofessional. And effective, Lee pointed out. There was a long pause before Grixmar continued. The Federation Council wishes to understand your military philosophy. How do you train your commanders? What strategic principles guide your tactics? Lee thought carefully before answering. We train our people to adapt to any situation. Our strategic principle is simple. Win the fight, protect our people, and come home alive. Everything else is optional. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in thoughtful silence. It was clear that the aliens were struggling to understand human military thinking, and that gave the humans a significant advantage. Days passed, and the ripple effects of the battle continued to spread. Long-range sensors detected massive fleet movements as various powers repositioned their forces. The careful balance of galactic warfare was shifting, and no one knew where the pieces would fall. On the Vorthak homeworld, military planners worked around the clock to develop countermeasures for human tactics. But every solution they proposed was based on their existing understanding of warfare, which had just proven inadequate. We could increase shield strength, suggested one analyst. They used multiple weapon types, came the response. Stronger. Shields won't help if they simply switch to weapons that bypass them entirely. We could improve our maneuverability. Their ship moved in ways our physics models say should be impossible. We don't even know how they generated that much thrust in multiple directions simultaneously. The Federation faced similar problems. Their military doctrine was based on thousands of years of refined tactics and strategies. But all that experience was useless against an enemy that didn't follow the same rules. Commander Yultok called an emergency session of the War Council. Representatives from every major species gathered once again in the Crystal Chamber, but the mood was very different from their previous meeting. We must adapt to this new threat, Yultok announced. The humans have introduced variables we did not anticipate. Perhaps we should attempt to recruit them, suggested an ethereal representative. Their military capability would be valuable in our conflict with the Vorthak. They have already refused our offer of client status, Admiral Grixmar pointed out. And after this demonstration, they clearly believe they can operate independently. Then we must prepare for the possibility that they will become a third faction in this conflict, Yultok concluded. A faction that does not play by established rules. Back on the Indomitable, Captain Lee was reviewing intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The humans had inadvertently revealed their presence to every major power at once, and the response was mixed. Some species saw opportunity, others saw threat, and a few saw the chance for fundamental change in how galactic warfare was conducted. "Sir," Lieutenant Kim called out, "I'm receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." "Put it through." Admiral Sung Jaemin appeared on the screen, his expression serious. "Captain Lee, congratulations on your victory. However, your battle has attracted significant attention. We're detecting fleet movements throughout that region of space. What are your orders, sir?" "Hold position and continue monitoring the situation. But be prepared. I have a feeling this is just the beginning. The aliens are about to learn what happens when humans go to war, and they're not going to like the lessons we teach them." The transmission ended, and Lee looked out at the stars surrounding his ship. Somewhere out there, alien commanders were trying to puzzle out human military doctrine. They were looking for patterns, rules, predictable responses that they could counter. They would find none of those things. Humans had learned to fight on a world where the only rule was survival, where adaptation meant the difference between life and death. They were about to introduce that philosophy to a galaxy that had forgotten what real warfare looked like. The news of the battle at New Busan spread through galactic space like wildfire. In command centers across dozens of worlds, alien military leaders watched the recorded battle footage with growing amazement and concern. What they saw challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare. Admiral Yultok stood in the crystal war room of the Federation flagship, replaying the battle for the 10th time. Around him, his senior staff watched in silence as the human ship tore apart 3 Vorthak destroyers with tactics they had never seen before. "Explain to me again how one ship defeated 3, Yultok demanded, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. Strategic analyst Kix 4, a 4-armed creature with multiple eyes, manipulated the holographic display. The human vessel used what appears to be chaos-based warfare, Admiral. Instead of following predictable patterns, they made decisions that seemed random but were actually calculated. Chaos-based warfare? Yultok repeated. That's impossible. Warfare is a science. It follows rules, patterns, logical progressions. You cannot win battles with chaos. Yet they did win, pointed out Fleet Captain Nex 12. And not just barely. They destroyed their opponents completely while taking minimal damage themselves. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place in the Vorthak command structure. Fleet Admiral Zex 9 paced back and forth in his war room, his reptilian claws clicking against the metal floor. The destruction of 3 destroyers by a single unknown vessel was the first major Vorthak defeat in centuries. Their weapons made no sense, reported Chief Analyst Kex 7, studying the sensor data. They fired dozens of different weapon types simultaneously. Kinetic projectiles, energy beams, explosive missiles, plasma streams, all from the same ship. Impossible, Zex 9 hissed. No ship can mount that many different weapon systems. The power requirements alone would be enormous. Yet the evidence is clear, Admiral. The human vessel somehow integrated technologies that should be incompatible. And they used them in ways that violated every principle of space combat. Back on the Indomitable, Communications Officer Lieutenant Kim So-ra was monitoring the flood of alien transmissions that filled local space. The battle had attracted attention from every major power in the galaxy, and all of them wanted to understand what they had witnessed. "Captain," Kim reported, "I'm intercepting communications from at least 12 different species. They're all trying to analyze our tactics." Captain Lee walked over to her station. "What are they saying?" "The Federation commanders are calling our fighting style impossible chaos. The Vorthak are demanding explanations from their own tactical experts, and there are several smaller species asking if we're available as mercenaries." Chief Engineer Park Jin-woo looked up from his damage assessment reports. "I've been monitoring their technical discussions too. They can't figure out how we mounted so many weapon systems on one ship. They keep talking about specialization and efficiency." "What do you mean?" Lee asked. "Their ships are designed for specific roles," Park explained. "A long-range attack vessel only has long-range weapons. An interceptor only has short-range systems. A defense ship only has defensive equipment. They can't comprehend a ship that's designed to do everything." Tactical Officer Yu Jin turned from her console. "It's more than that, sir. I've been studying their battle footage from previous conflicts. They fight like they're following a rulebook. Formation Alpha attacks Position Beta, which responds with Maneuver Gamma. It's all very organized and predictable." "Predictable is good," Lee mused. "Predictable means we can stay ahead of them." The discussion was interrupted by an incoming transmission from Admiral Grixmar of the Hegemony. The insectoid commander appeared on the main screen, her mandibles clicking rapidly in what the translator rendered as extreme agitation. Human vessel, this is Admiral Grixmar of the Galactic Federation. We demand an explanation for your tactical systems. Your methods violate established rules of engagement. Lee exchanged glances with his senior staff before responding. Admiral, we're not aware of any rules that govern how we defend ourselves. Could you explain what violations you're referring to? You used multiple weapon types simultaneously. Grixmar buzzed. You changed your attack pattern randomly. You maneuvered in ways that ignored optimal efficiency. These tactics are chaotic and unprofessional. And effective, Lee pointed out. There was a long pause before Grixmar continued. The Federation Council wishes to understand your military philosophy. How do you train your commanders? What strategic principles guide your tactics? Lee thought carefully before answering. We train our people to adapt to any situation. Our strategic principle is simple. Win the fight, protect our people, and come home alive. Everything else is optional. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in thoughtful silence. It was clear that the aliens were struggling to understand human military thinking, and that gave the humans a significant advantage. Days passed, and the ripple effects of the battle continued to spread. Long-range sensors detected massive fleet movements as various powers repositioned their forces. The careful balance of galactic warfare was shifting, and no one knew where the pieces would fall. On the Vorthak homeworld, military planners worked around the clock to develop countermeasures for human tactics. But every solution they proposed was based on their existing understanding of warfare, which had just proven inadequate. We could increase shield strength, suggested one analyst. They used multiple weapon types, came the response. Stronger. Shields won't help if they simply switch to weapons that bypass them entirely. We could improve our maneuverability. Their ship moved in ways our physics models say should be impossible. We don't even know how they generated that much thrust in multiple directions simultaneously. The Federation faced similar problems. Their military doctrine was based on thousands of years of refined tactics and strategies. But all that experience was useless against an enemy that didn't follow the same rules. Commander Yultok called an emergency session of the War Council. Representatives from every major species gathered once again in the Crystal Chamber, but the mood was very different from their previous meeting. We must adapt to this new threat, Yultok announced. The humans have introduced variables we did not anticipate. Perhaps we should attempt to recruit them, suggested an ethereal representative. Their military capability would be valuable in our conflict with the Vorthak. They have already refused our offer of client status, Admiral, Grixmar pointed out. And after this demonstration, they clearly believe they can operate independently. Then we must prepare for the possibility that they will become a third faction in this conflict, Yultok concluded. A faction that does not play by established rules. Back on the Indomitable, Captain Lee was reviewing intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The humans had inadvertently revealed their presence to every major power at once, and the response was mixed. Some species saw opportunity, others saw threat, and a few saw the chance for fundamental change in how galactic warfare was conducted. "Sir," Lieutenant Kim called out, "I'm receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." "Put it through." Admiral Sung Jaemin appeared on the screen, his expression serious. "Captain Lee, congratulations on your victory. However, your battle has attracted significant attention. We're detecting fleet movements throughout that region of space. What are your orders, sir?" "Hold position and continue monitoring the situation. But be prepared. I have a feeling this is just the beginning. The aliens are about to learn what happens when humans go to war, and they're not going to like the lessons we teach them." The transmission ended, and Lee looked out at the stars surrounding his ship. Somewhere out there, alien commanders were trying to puzzle out human military doctrine. They were looking for patterns, rules, predictable responses that they could counter. They would find none of those things. Humans had learned to fight on a world where the only rule was survival, where adaptation meant the difference between life and death. They were about to introduce that philosophy to a galaxy that had forgotten what real warfare looked like. Admiral Sung Jae-min stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching the hyperspace exit coordinates where Captain Lee's ship waited. Behind him, the largest human fleet ever assembled was dropping out of faster-than-light travel in carefully timed waves. 12 battleships, 30 cruisers, and over 100 support vessels, the entire combined might of Earth's space navy. "Fleet deployment complete, Admiral," reported Fleet Operations Commander Ryu Min-sik. "All ships report ready for combat operations." Sung nodded, studying the tactical display that showed both friendly and hostile forces throughout the system. The Vorthak had responded to their defeat at New Busan by sending a massive battle fleet. Over 200 ships arranged in the classic formations that had brought them victory for centuries. "Signal Captain Lee to come alongside," Sung ordered. "I want to hear his assessment of the situation firsthand." The UES Indomitable moved into position next to the flagship, and within minutes Lee had transferred over to brief the Admiral. The two men met in Retribution's war room, a massive chamber lined with tactical displays showing the entire regional situation. "Captain, your battle report makes interesting reading," Sung said, gesturing to the holographic display between them. "Tell me about these aliens' tactical capabilities." Lee highlighted several areas on the display. "They're extremely advanced technologically, sir, but they're locked into rigid thinking patterns. Every move is calculated, every formation is textbook perfect, every response follows established doctrine. And their weaknesses? They can't adapt quickly to unexpected situations. When we did something they hadn't planned for, it took them precious seconds to respond. In space combat, that's an eternity." Sung studied the enemy fleet positions. The Vorthak had arranged their ships in 3 massive wedge formations, each one designed to deliver overwhelming firepower against specific target zones. It was beautiful in its mathematical precision. "What do you recommend, Captain?" "Hit them where they don't expect it with methods they can't predict," Lee replied without hesitation. "They're expecting a traditional fleet engagement. Battle. Lines, concentrated fire, textbook maneuvers. If we give them something completely different, their command structure won't know how to respond." On the other side of the system, Vorthak Fleet Admiral Crix 9 was conducting his own strategic planning session. The reptilian commander stood before a holographic representation of the human fleet, studying their formations with growing confidence. Finally, "A proper battle," Crix 9 hissed to his subordinates. "These humans have gathered their entire fleet in one location. We can destroy them all at once and end this threat permanently." "Admiral," reported his intelligence officer, "our analysis suggests the human ships follow similar design principles to the vessel that defeated our destroyers. Multiple weapon systems, heavy armor, unusual maneuverability." "It matters little," Crix 9 replied dismissively. "Numbers will tell. We have 200 ships to their 150. Even with their chaotic tactics, they cannot overcome such odds." The Vorthak fleet began moving into attack formation, their ships spreading out in the classic triple wedge pattern that had brought them victory in dozens of previous battles. Each wedge would attack from a different angle, dividing the enemies. attention, and creating multiple points of overwhelming force. But Admiral Sung had no intention of fighting a traditional battle. As the enemy fleet approached, he issued orders that would have seemed insane to any alien commander. "All ships, implement Maneuver 7, he announced over the fleet communication system. "Remember, we're not trying to match their formations. We're trying to break them." Maneuver 7 was something the humans had developed during their own wars on Earth, a tactic that involved deliberately creating chaos in your own formation to deny the enemy predictable targets. Instead of maintaining neat battle lines, the human ships scattered in all directions, each one operating independently while maintaining communication with the fleet command. Captain Oh Yunbi, commanding the cruiser UES Vigilant, found herself leading a small group of ships directly toward the center of the Vorthak formation. It went against everything military doctrine taught about fleet engagement, but she trusted Admiral Sung's unconventional thinking. "All weapons, prepare for close quarters engagement," she ordered. "We're going right through the middle of them." The Vorthak fleet commander watched in amazement as the human ships seemed to abandon all tactical sense. Instead of forming defensive lines or concentrating their firepower, they were spreading out randomly across the battlefield. "Are they retreating?" asked his tactical officer. "No," Crix 9 replied slowly. "I believe I don't know what they're doing. This formation makes no tactical sense." That was exactly what Admiral Sung was counting on. As the two fleets closed distance, the Vorthak commanders found themselves unable to execute their carefully planned attack patterns. Their ships were designed to target specific enemy formations, but the humans weren't maintaining any formation at all. The first engagement began when Captain O's cruiser group punched through the center of the lead Vorthak wedge. Instead of engaging the entire formation at once, her ships concentrated their fire on individual enemy vessels, overwhelming their defenses before moving on to the next target. "Target the command ship," O ordered. "Take out their coordination before they can adapt." The Vigilant and her escorts unleashed everything they had at the Vorthak wedge leader. The alien ship, designed to coordinate attacks from the rear of the formation, was not prepared for close-range combat. It exploded in seconds, throwing the entire wedge into confusion. Similar scenes were playing out across the battlefield. Human ships were operating in small, independent groups, each one targeting a different part of the enemy formation. The Vorthak found themselves fighting dozens of separate battles simultaneously instead of one coordinated engagement. Chief Engineering Officer Bae Dong-hyun, aboard the battleship UES Thunderbolt, watched his ship's power distribution systems work at maximum efficiency. Unlike alien vessels that were optimized for specific combat roles, human ships could redirect power between different systems instantly. "Captain, I can give you full power to engines for 30 seconds, then switch everything to weapons," he reported. "Do it," came the reply. "We're going to ram their line, then turn and hit them from behind." The Thunderbolt accelerated directly at a group of Vorthak heavy cruisers, building up tremendous speed. The aliens, seeing the human ship approaching, prepared to concentrate their fire and destroy it before it could reach them. But at the last second, the Thunderbolt cut power to engines and redirected everything to weapons. Instead of ramming the enemy line, it fired every weapon it had while passing through their formation at high speed. The surprise attack devastated 3 alien ships before they could react. Admiral Crix 9 watched his carefully planned battle dissolve into chaos. His ships were designed to work together in coordinated formations, but the humans had made coordination impossible. Every time his commanders tried to regroup, another human attack force would appear from an unexpected direction. Order all ships to break formation, he finally commanded. Each vessel will engage independently. But it was too late. The Vorthak ships had been trained to fight as part of larger formations. When forced to operate alone, they lost much of their effectiveness. The humans, meanwhile, had trained their crews to be adaptable and independent from the beginning. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. One by one, Vorthak ships were overwhelmed by human forces that appeared from unexpected directions, attacked in unpredictable ways, and disappeared before the aliens could mount effective counterattacks. When the shooting finally stopped, the Vorthak fleet was scattered across the system in burning wreckage. Less than 50 ships remained intact, and most of those were attempting to retreat at maximum speed. Admiral Sung surveyed the battlefield from his flagship bridge. The human fleet had taken losses, 8 ships destroyed, dozens more damaged. But they had achieved a victory that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Secure the system and begin rescue operations. And send a message to Earth Command. The aliens now know what human warfare really looks like."